Hi everyone, it's Jeremy here helping you to self-build your own projects. And in the previous videos we looked at setting out and digging down the trenches, and once we are set we compared ready mix versus hand mix concretes for our home extension, the pros and the cons, and how I quantify for both. We showed how for this particular job the best bet was to go for ready mixed concrete coming straight out of the lorry. My advice, wherever possible, is to use a ready-mix concrete company which is ordered by the cube, a cube being of course a metre cubed, and the lorry comes to the front of your house with a ready-mixed quantity of concrete within the revolving drum of the vehicle, and you can carry it through to the back of your property using wheelbarrows, or for bigger jobs you can pump it through, which is a more expensive process since you need to pay for the hire of the pump as well as the concrete itself. With pumping there's also a lot less margin for error. It's a faster application, so preparation is the key. These companies do have a minimum order quantity depending on where you are in the country. For anything less than a cube where I am, they won't entertain it, so bear that in mind when you are quantifying. For small jobs, hand mixing is the way. For sites with difficult access, hand mixing is the way. But comparing the costs of a ready mix company delivering to hand mixing and batching yourself, as in my previous video, you can see how I did the calculations. There will be a link here, and have a look at that if you're interested for a full breakdown of how to order for cement mixing and hiring the right equipment, how to choose your mix, the quantities of each material you'll need. This kind of thing is great to know even if you are going for a ready mix solution, just in case you do need to do any small mixes after the event. So knowing my quantity of concrete and the strength required, which we may have got from our engineer's drawings or from a list of recommendations based on standards and classifications if you're not using an engineer, I will phone round the various companies and book in a fair time in advance so as to give me enough time to get all my trenching and materials prepared. In my opinion, when you tally it all up, the cost of ready-mix concrete is actually cheaper than mixing by hand, especially when you take account of your own time, the hassle factor, as well as the additional equipment that you will have to get hold of. For example, a cement mixer and hand tools such as spades, buckets and rakes. So with that last big decision out of the way, get a delivery booked in for just over 2 cube of concrete. And at the time of making this video, there is a shortage of concrete everywhere on the planet. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So whatever method you use, you'll need to plan well in advance and make sure you've got your budgeting sorted out. Here we need a C35 mix, and here it is on our delivery note from the vehicle. And typical costs for a cube of ready mix concrete delivered off the lorry are £220 including VAT in my part of the world, with delivery charge on top. You can see how inflation has already pushed this price up from just a few months ago when I did this project. If you measure the quantity of your concrete correctly, I need an allowance for wastage, so I normally add an excess of about 20% onto the 2 cube. See my other video for how to accurately quantify your concrete, either by hand or by using ready mix. Now, ready mix companies can measure out these quantities absolutely exactly, and you'll only be able to get what you have ordered since the remaining concrete is for other customers. So err on the side of excess. Here we are waiting for our ready mix lorry to come, and I'm rehearsing the path of the wheelbarrow, doing a test run here to make sure there'll be no problems, because when the vehicle comes you've got a very short time window. Usually you'll have an hour time slot, and you have to be ready at the point when they arrive, when the clock starts ticking, and you'll have to get all the concrete off the lorry in that hour time slot. Now I think there will be about 30 wheelbarrow loads here, given I know the volume of a wheelbarrow and I know the volume of the concrete we have to pour, and then I can figure out how long each load will take to fill up from the lorry. That will help me figure if I need additional help, and of course I definitely do. So in this case I paid for a couple of friends for the day, one of whom works with me fairly often when I'm doing these types of jobs. And I hope it's becoming clear nevertheless through these videos of how little expense is actually involved when you plan and execute the work for your own foundations yourself, when you compare to how much you would pay for a firm of builders to carry it out. In this case I saved over £9,000 by doing this work myself. So for this load, make sure you've got at least 2 people on the wheelbarrow side of things and 1 person at the trench leveling out the concrete as you go with a rake. The wheelbarrows are usually provided by the ready-mix company. The garden rake is absolutely fine. I got this from Toolstation just for a few pounds. And a rookie's error with heavy wheelbarrow loads is to go slow. An important tip when you're running the wheelbarrow is to do it quickly, not slowly, because of the momentum of the wheelbarrow and the weight of the concrete will make it easier to maneuver, much easier actually. It's a counterintuitive thing, but if you go slow, you will find it straining on your back, and it's also much harder to turn, with the result of possibly tipping the wheelbarrow on its axis and the concrete going all over the ground. That's right, I've seen it several times. I generally find the guys that operate these vehicles to be really helpful if you're struggling. And talking of really helpful, it would really help me if you could give me a thumbs up for YouTube and hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this content. However, the responsibility is on you to be organised. It is a very stressful bit because you have to get it right first time, but it is straightforward if you've done everything we've discussed so far and prepared the site accordingly. Here I've prepped and reinforced the concrete trench with wooden battens and some OSB shuttering jammed with the buttons against the sides, and this is doing 2 things. One of which is to stop the sides of the trench falling in whilst we're waiting for the vehicle to come, in case it rains, for example. And the other reason is to create a kind of funnel to direct the concrete as the wheelbarrow is tipped up. The soil conditions on this particular job, well, there was a lot of loose rubble that had been chucked into the topsoil by the house builder when he was building the house, and I didn't want that to start falling into the trench as the concrete went in. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, I need to get the top of the concrete dead level. There's no point in spending your time on all this setting out if you can't get the top face of your foundations absolutely dead level, as otherwise you won't be able to set out your trench blocks level, which in turn will mean your brickwork or block work is not level. I've set out this line of pegs with a level. The top's a dead level with where I want the concrete to be, so that's where we'll pour the concrete up to. That is our old school visual marker that we talked about in the previous video. However, unfortunately, concrete isn't like water where it will find its own level naturally, because it's got so many lumpy bits that will prevent it level. So how to make it settle accurately using these beautiful old school pegs we put in? Well, I promised you one more old school thing we need, and it's the 2-man level damper tool. With your concrete poured into the trench, and in order to get the top of the concrete level with the pegs, it can be a very tricky thing to see if it's indeed level with the pegs when you're a metre higher. But an almost foolproof leveling tool is to construct this leveling jig out of some of your framing timbers. In this case we've used 4x2s or 100x50s. Use the depth of your trench to create these dimensions, and since I've set the pegs out at 1 metre centres approximately, I'll set out the length of my jig to always sit on 3 pegs, so I'll make the bottom bit 2.2 metres in length. I'll add some straps around it, which will enable me to secure my 1.8 meter long level to its face. And with 2 guys on each end, we can start to very accurately dampen down the top of the concrete, with the pegs helping us to get it dead level, keeping our eye on the bead to make sure everything is indeed level. Simple, super cheap, but I hope you see, in combination with the pegs, super effective. Now with all that done, I can start to relax, tidy up the site and think about any protection I might need, both from a site safety point of view and from a climate protection point of view. I don't want the concrete to get rained on excessively, but of course I've already chosen a window of good weather, which we discussed in our earlier video. I definitely don't want it dropping anywhere near freezing. If you must pour in any month of the year where the temperature can drop unexpectedly, have some insulation boards and some tarps to hand to cover the trench after it's been poured, which will help prevent the inside of it freezing whilst the concrete is curing. But best to try to wait till the summer months if you can. Well, I hope this has helped you see how a well-prepared novice really can save a lot by doing the foundation work themselves. But if you've any questions, drop me a comment below and I'll be happy to respond. And with that said, I'll say cheerio and hope to see you in the next one.